This is probably going to be a 3-part video series running through how to completely restructure your existing BMS maintenance contract. And it's really our first step in as we transition away from typical periodic preventative maintenance and move into a more modernized maintenance plan where there's a combination of preventative maintenance and high value energy efficiency type tasks are built into the same contract. So for example, if you have a $100,000 maintenance contract, you will be able to quite easily restructure that around so that you can have high value tasks that we would normally pay extra for, or we'd normally charge our clients extra for, built into that as part of normal day-to-day service. Now, this is not going to be about building analytics or needing to go and buy additional technology type stuff. This is really quite simple, and after the second video in the series, you would be able to sit down in 4 hours with a cup of coffee and make this major change. Now, as we start this little journey of change, it's really important if we have a little bit of a discussion around how has BMS maintenance changed in the last 20 to 40 years from before we had BMS systems. And once you work through this, it will become very obvious to us that we need to make a change. So let's think about maintenance in, say, the 1980s. So before we had networked controllers and before we had servers and graphics and alarms and trends and all this data available to us, let's run through a typical day of BMS maintenance. So in the morning, the building engineer would come to site, say, 7 o'clock in the morning, and because he didn't have a BMS system to look at, he would have walked through all of the plant rooms, the low-rise plant rooms, the high-rise plant rooms, chiller plant rooms, boiler plant rooms, and he'd poke his head in there. He'd make sure that all the green lights were on the mech boards and there were no red lights on the mech boards. So he made sure that everything was mostly running and no major pieces of equipment had faulted. And because if he didn't do this and there was a tripped circuit breaker on the roof, he wouldn't know that there was no cooling towers until an hour or two later when the whole building lost control. So the building engineer went through and did a quick scan through the building, looks okay, went back to his sort of normal daily tasks. Then perhaps later on in the morning, the BMS service technician, there was no BMS, so he was probably a mechanical service technician or an HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning technician. So this guy would come to site and he's now looking after or maintaining the building's control system, which was a standalone control system. So there was some pneumatics, there were standalone electric controllers, thermostats, relays, that sort of thing. No graphics, alarms, trends, no networks. And the only way that he could maintain these systems was to actually physically go and check every single piece of equipment. So every year he would just go through the whole thing. So today he'd go through to air handling unit 1. He'd physically go and check, is the outside air damper working? Are the cooling valves working? Is it all okay? If he didn't do that and that damper actuator failed closed or failed open, they wouldn't know about it for 12 months until he came past and checked it again. So for 12 months, we could either have no outside air and stuffy conditions, or we could have 100% outside air and have sort of temperature issues. So that is how maintenance started in our industry, in my opinion. Periodic preventative maintenance, going around and looking for broken things so we can fix them and indirectly, prevent temperature problems and even save energy, I guess, although in those days we didn't care about energy. Now, if you jump forward to modern day BMS systems, we have graphics, alarms, and trends at a minimum, energy management systems. So we have all this information available to us that we never had 20, 30, 40 years ago, but we are generally still doing the same thing. So most BMS maintenance contracts revolve around us providing a price that over a 12-month period, we will get through all of the equipment, chillers, boilers, cooling towers, air handling units, fans, the whole thing. So we still have predominantly this preventative maintenance contract, And in my opinion, we haven't changed what we do as our technology's improved. Now we can open the graphic on the air handling unit. We can see the supply temperature set point is 16 degrees Celsius. The temperature is close to 16. The cooling valve's 50% open. The heating valve's closed. The outside damper's sort of open for minimum outside air. So we can see all this information. And we have trends that show us that in the morning when the plant started up, it shows us that we told the fan to start and the fan started, 60 seconds later. And we have trends that show us that as the cooling valve smoothly opened, the temperature dropped down towards set point, overshoot slightly and sort of stabilized. So we have all this information, but yet we are still basically going around and spending a lot of money for highly skilled staff to look for broken things to then fix them. And what I usually say to people when I run through this is that when you have a preventative maintenance contract and you're basically just looking for broken things, because basically with these contracts, high value tasks, energy efficiency, control strategy optimization, small project work, all that stuff sort of costs extra. But under our $100,000 a year maintenance contract, going around looking for broken things, our control system and our building does not improve. So under a preventative maintenance contract, the BMS and the control system will this year work exactly the same as it worked the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, and for 5 years before that. So our money that we spend, our $100,000 a year of maintenance contract value, does not translate into any real savings that can be measured for the building owner. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to change this. So hopefully by now, most of you, whether you're a facility manager or a building owner or you're a BMS company, has thought through that and sort of thought about the value that we get out of that. Where's the value in a preventative maintenance contract? So next week, we're going to run through in one video very quickly how to completely start the restructuring of that. Because when I first started doing this, and I created a BMS maintenance specification, and I started listing out, this is all the stuff that we have to do. This is all the high value stuff that translates into savings and a better user experience for the people that use the system. I very quickly realized that, hey, if we add all this stuff in, our maintenance contract is going to double in contract value because we're not doing this right now, and now I'm specifying it. So I realized that there was a major flaw in what I was trying to do. So I sort of put that on hold for 6 months, and I worked out how can I get all of this good stuff built into the maintenance contract without the maintenance contract value actually increasing. And next week, I'm going to show you the first way to change that. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.